Right? It's so interesting, though, you know? Like, ready? All right, Rabosai, good morning. Let's begin. Today's daf is daf Samech. We are picking up at the Mishnah on the bottom of the Testament days. Beautiful, beautiful Gemara ahead of us today. I want to thank Rav Kalman Akiva for giving the shir yesterday and incredible Yasher Koach. Our shir this morning is dedicated by our Talmud Torah sponsors, Josh and Becker Friedman, the Eloi Nishmas, Yisrael Yehuda ben Rav Chaim Rafael, and Semi Malka Esterson in memory of their parents, Yitzchok Leib ben Aaron HaKohen, Sarah Rachel Bas Baruch, and Hinda Bas Henech Ephraim. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshamas will have an aliyah and the families a nechama. And I say with that, let us begin. It's hard to believe that we are within 2 weeks in Meretz Hashem of finishing Shas. Quite incredible. So these are mamish, the final dapim of this machzor of Shas. Incredible. Says the Mishnah, Hish'ila chaluka lenachris o lenida. If a woman goes ahead and lends her garment, she lends her chaluka means a cloak. She lends her garment to a Gentile or to a nida. So we're going to see what this means in just a moment. Hareza tolabas. So what's the case? The case is a woman, we'll call her Rachel, goes ahead and lends out her garment to another woman, either who is not Jewish or who is a nida. When Rachel gets the garment back, then what occurs? She finds a stain on the garment. So the Mishnah tells me that halacha l'maisa Rachel could attribute the stain to the woman to whom she lent the garment. That woman being either a nida or a Gentile woman. What's the logic over here? So take a look at Rashi. This is really quite fascinating. Harei Tola, Rashi says, utahora. Therefore, both say when Rachel. Now remember again. The case, just so you appreciate it, is when does Rachel find the stain on the garment? When does she find it? After she wore it, right? So remember again, the progression over here is Rachel has a garment, she lends it to another woman, and that other woman is either not Jewish or a nida. Rachel gets the garment back, she wears it, she takes it off, and she discovers a stain on that garment. What the Mishnah is saying, halacha l'maisa, is that she could attribute that kesem, that stain, to the woman to whom she lent the garment. Look at Rashi. Hari Zatola, this is incredible. Utahora. And therefore Rachel is tahora. Why? Dechevan denidahi lo mekalka lamidi. V'nochris nami tmeya v'tal ba. So what's the idea that the Mishnah is saying? Is Rachel, the owner of the garment, could attribute the kesem to another woman as long as the attribution does not compromise the other woman. As we're going to see in this sugi is as follows, that when you have doubt as to where the kesem originated, so lamaisa, you could be tola it, as long as being tola it somewhere does not compromise the source of the taliyah. So for example, in this situation, if Rachel were to attribute it to one of these two women to whom she lent it out, either the nida or to the nachris or to the not Jewish woman, does the attribution of the kesem to the nida or to the nachris in any way compromise those women? And the answer is no. The nida is what? Already a nida, right? And the nachris, the non-Jewish woman, it makes no difference anyway. So therefore, again, what the Mishnah is telling me is where there is the possibility of attribution without going in and compromising the woman to whom you are attributing it to, that type of attribution works. Masha Enkein, Rashi says, Aval Yisraelis tahora, shesha'alu chaluk mechaverta tahora, v'achar kach lavashta chaverta shteyen tameos. So both say, this is going to be opposed to a case where, let's say, Rachel lends her garment to Leah, and Leah is also a tahora, and then Rachel gets the garment back. Rachel wears it, and afterwards discovers a kesem. So we'll say in that kind of case, so we're going to have a problem because lamaisa there, it's not clear exactly who to attribute it to, and else safek, we'll see you have to attribute it to both of them. So we'll get to that in Gemara. So it says back to the Mishnah, Gimel nashim shalavshu chalak echad, 3 women who wore the same garment. Or they sat on the same bench. And Abba say, what happened? V'nimtza alav dam. Now afterwards, again, at some point in time, either on the garment or on the bench, they found blood. So what's the halacha? Kulan tmeo. So we'll say in this case over here, you can't attribute it to any one person. Why? Because again, Abba say pretty much they all have the same status. Attribution is not possible, and therefore halacha l'maisa, they will all be tmeos. Yashvu al saf sal shal even. O ala itztava shel merchatz. So we'll say, but if she sat on a bench of stone or on the ledge of the bathhouse, so we'll say, so in this case, the previous case, when we spoke about a safsal, we are presupposing that the safsal is made of wood. and therefore makabel tuma. In this case over here, the safsal, the edge of the bath, is made of stone. Stone is not makabel tuma. Therefore, again, Rabbi Nechemiah metar. Rabbi Nechemiah says in this kind of case, where you find a stain on the safsal, on the bench, or on the edge of the bathtub, or the edge of the bathhouse, bathtub. So ultimately, Rabbi Nechemiah says everybody in question is tahar. Why? Because Rabbi Nechemiah Omer called davar she'eno mekabel tuma, eno mekabel ksamim. Because Rabbi Nechemiah says, Rabbi say anything that is not mekabel tuma is not mekabel ksamim. Rabbi say, we know we've spoken about that before. This is this is a very important halacha when it comes to the halachos of ksamim, that anything that is not mekabel tuma, by definition, is not mekabel ksam. Rabbi, I think we spoke about this last week, right? Did I tell you about this last week? This is the idea by Rav Moshe, right? Rav Moshe Paskins that therefore, again, when a woman sees blood on toilet paper, ultimately, again, it does not cause a hilchos niddah problem, which is an incredible psak halacha, because again, toilet paper is not a kli, it's not mekabel tuma, and therefore, again, not mekabel ksamim. So very, very important halacha. Good, says the Gemara. Amar Rav. So Rav says, "B'nochris haroa," top of samech. So we'll say when we say that Rachel she lends it to a non-Jewish woman, she gets it back from the non-Jewish woman. Rachel wears it, and afterwards discovers a stain. So what did we say? That Rachel could attribute that stain to the nochris. Rav comes along and Rav says, when is that so? When it's a nochris, ultimately again, who's a gedola, right? And she becomes a niddah. As Rashi says, haroa shegdolihi v'adina b'dikvarasa. When can you attribute it to a nachas, Rabbosai? When we know for sure that the nachas is a woman who menstruates. When we know for sure that she's old enough and she does become a niddah. So the Gemara says, Mima, how do I know this? Dumya denida. Mani de kachazia, af nachris de kachazia. Because also remember again, the Mishnah mentions nachris and nida. And just like a nida is a woman who has, right, who experiences menstruation. So to the nachris in question over here is a woman who experiences menstruation. So we'll say, Amar Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes says, he's incredible. Kinayim v'shachir Rav Amar lahashmaita. Rav was half asleep when he said this. Which means I disagree, right? I disagree. Disanya, Tola benachris. Tola benachris. Because also the Mishnah says, the Brisa says as follows, that in this case over here, where Rachel lends out, I will say, by the way, it's actually very interesting. You know, sometimes you wonder, we've seen that type of expression before, you would wonder, it seems so coarse. Right? It seems like, you know, in general, so today, like teachers are often conditioned, you never chas v'shalom want to make someone feel foolish, even when they say something really stupid, right? So we'll say so, right? Even if it's like, no, that was a great question. I was like, wow, that's so smart. Or the classic reframe, what you really mean to say, right, is this. So it's interesting that you're seeing the Gemara both say, but it teaches you a very valuable lesson. In the world of Torah, we are conditioned to think before we speak. And just because you think it doesn't mean you say it. And just because it sounds intelligent as it's whirling around in your brain doesn't actually mean it has any shred of intelligence attached to it. Right? The goal in the world of Torah is to formulate your thoughts before you express them verbally. Is to hash it out inside before you let it come out. It's because Talmud Torah, it's supposed to be a precision science. So the goal is think whatever you want, but before you express something, make sure that you've worked it through to some degree. So that's why you'll see, ultimately, for example, in this case over here, where Rav Sheshes really feels that like Rav is being reckless in his statement, and Rav Sheshes really feels that Rav is not saying something, Rav must have said this while you're in other words, you weren't thinking before you said this, because if you were thinking, you would never have uttered this idea. So he goes on, he says, Tisanya, because we'll say the Brisa says as follows, Tola benachris. Because the Brisa says that ultimately what? He goes ahead, and if again, same case, Rachel lends out the garment, and she goes ahead, puts it back on, afterwards finds a stain, she could attribute it to the Gentile woman that she lent it to. Rabbi Meir Omer, benachris haruya liros. And Rabbi Meir said that what? Rabbi Meir says, who is this? A nachris haruya liros. So we'll say, what's ru'uya? Ru'uya means she's reached the age where technically she could become a niddah. Has she become a niddah? We don't know. Let's say, here's the fundamental machlokas. You see, this is why Rav Sheshes didn't like this, because Rav is saying that when could Rachel attribute the blood, the stain on her garment, ultimately to a nachris? When could she attribute it? When? So Rav was saying, Only when mamish roa, when she's a gedola, and we know that she is someone who becomes a niddah. Rabbi Meir comes along and says, no, ru'uya. And I will say, ru'uya is a much lower bar. Rashi says, ru'uya liros, shegiu yemei hanu'urim. Once she reaches age, so we'll say, who would this refer to? We would assume this would refer to a 12-year-old girl, right? Once a girl is 12 years old, she's ru'uya. She's ru'uya. Is she menstruating at 12 years old or not? Maybe yes, maybe no. But lamaisa, she's ru'uya for it. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Meir lo kamar ella beru'uya liros, and even Rabbi Meir only holds ultimately that she has to be ru'uya, aval roa lo itzterich, but she need not actually have reached the threshold of roa. So we'll say, you hear the distinction over here? There is roa and ru'uya liros. Roa means she literally, we know that this is a woman who menstruates. That's roa. Ru'uya means she's at the age where, technically speaking, a girl, right, or a woman could begin to menstruate. Whether she is or not, we have no idea. So the Gemara says, Amar Rava v'tizbira, Rabbi Meir l'chumra. They both say. Now, it sounds like over here that Rabbi Meir is more machmir, right, and Rav is more mekil. Right, Rav is saying roa, Rabbi Meir is saying afilu, right, ru'uya liros, which is even a younger age. So the Gemara says, v'tizbira, Rabbi Meir l'chumra. Do you think Rabbi Meir is being machmir? No. Rabbi Meir l'kula. No, please be clear. Rabbi Meir's sheet is actually the more makel one. How so? This sanya, eina tola benachris. The Brisa says that if Rachel lends out her garment to a non-Jewish woman, gets it back, then finds a stain on it after she wears it, she cannot attribute it to a Gentile, to the woman she lent it to. Rabbi Meir Omer Tola. Rabbi Meir says yes, she can, which obviously represents a kula. Ve'ela kashyach taritzachi v'hi sheroa Rabbi Meir Omer beru'uya liros v'afa pi she'ina roa. So we'll say here. So therefore, the Gemara explains that in fact Rabbi Meir, saying differently, Rabbi Meir ultimately, again, is really the chumrah, that Rabbi Meir is saying afilu ru'uya lira. So we'll say it's a fundamental machlokes, Rabbi Meir and Rav. So we'll say here's what we know. Rachel has a garment, she lends it out to her Gentile friend. She gets it back, she wears it, and after she wears it, she finds a stain on the garment. What's the shaila? Who does this stain belong to? Does this stain belong to Rachel, in which case, again, she's going to potentially be a niddah, or does the stain belong to the Gentile friend that she lent it out to? So we'll say, so what does this depend on? Machlokes Rabbi Meir and Rav. Rav will say it, well, both will say it depends. Rav will say it depends on what? Is this a woman who is the Gentile friend a roa? I will say roa means what? Roa means what? So ultimately, again, she's a gedola, and we know for sure that this is a woman who gets her period. Right? Rabbi Meir says, no. She need not be that old, right? She need not be that old. Rather what? Even someone who has potentially reached the age when she can become a niddah, whether we know she becomes a niddah or not is irrelevant, as long as she's reached that age threshold. So Pashas will say that would refer to who? Even a girl who's 12 years old, 12 years old in 6 months, right? Who could technically at that point in time become a niddah, whether we know she becomes a niddah or not is irrelevant. So we'll say machlokes between whether we need the nachris to be roa, actively someone who sees, or ru'uya liros. So I will say now, based on that machlokes, we're kind of going to open this up to a number of similar types of cases, which are really quite fascinating. Tan Rabbanan, Tola b'shameres yom kineged yom b'sheni shala u'b'saferes shiva shelo tavla. So isn't this a very interesting case? So same idea. Rachel has a garment. She lends it out to a friend of hers. She gets it back. She wears it, and after she wears it, she finds a stain on it. So, of course, if you're Rachel, what do you want to be able to do? What do you want to do if you're Rachel? You want to be able to attribute this to someone else, right? That of course, is the goal, right? Therefore, Rachel remains tahora, and she can attribute the kesem to her friend. So now, Basi, listen to this interesting brisa. So the brisa says as follows: If her friend, Rachel's friend, is someone who is shomeres yom kineged yom b'sheni shala. So let's remember again: if a woman has an emission, right? If a woman has an emission, and ultimately, again, so remember, let's say she has 1 day of emission. What's the halach of the woman who has a 1 day emission? So she's what's called shomeres yom kineged yom. So I'll say, so just for argument's sake, she has an emission on Sunday. She's not in her niddah period, so it's a zivos, right? It's a zava emission. So we'll say, what's the halach if a woman has one emission? So remember again, she has to observe 1 clean day corresponding to every day she had an emission. So for example, if she has an emission on Sunday, right? So therefore, what Monday has to be a clean day? Monday, she goes to the mikvah sometime on Monday, and come Monday night, she's tahora. Right? She's tahora. So we'll say, the Brayson says as follows. If the woman who she lent to is a shomeres yom keneged yom, and she lent the garment to her friend on Monday, right? On Monday, the friend had the garment on Monday. Rachel gets it back sometime on Monday. She could attribute the kesem to her friend. Now, I will say now, the ramifications for the friend is what? If we're attributing the kesem to the friend, then what's the ramification of that? Right? Then Allah said that means the friend bled on Monday. The friend bled on Monday. If the friend bled on Monday, then what? Monday won't count. The friend will have to what? Observe Tuesday and go to the mikvah Tuesday night, right? Or, for example, ubisoferes shiva shelo tavla. Or Rabbi say, for that matter, if the friend is observing Shiva Nekiyim, let's say the friend was a Zava Gedola, and she's observing 7 clean days. Rachel lent the garment to her one of the 7 clean days. Rachel gets it back. The garment has a kesem. We'll attribute the kesem to who? To the friend in the Shiva Nekiyim. Now, if you attribute the kesem to the friend in the Shiva Nekiyim, then what happens? The Shiva Nekiyim are done, and the friend has to begin the Shiva Nekiyim again. So Rabbi say, listen to this. Therefore, lefichach himitu kenes is good news and bad news. What's the good news? The good news is Rachel's fine, right? What's the bad news? The friend is not. So Rabbi say, listen to this. Divrei Reb Shimon Gamliel. These are the words of Reb Shimon Gamliel. So we'll say, look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi says over here, if you look at the end of Rashi, B'sheni Shela, Va'af agav de mekalkala la porta de tzricha lishmor yom ha'machras, kevan de tmeash. So we'll say, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's logic is like this. What's his logic? Let's analyze this for just a moment. So we'll say, here's the case. This is really quite fascinating. So Rachel has a garment. She lends it to her friend. Right? One of 2 friends. Friend A is Shomeres Yom Keneged Yom. She's observing her clean day before she goes to the mikvah, just to go ahead, in order to go ahead and get to, she's observing her clean day. Right? Friend 2 is in the middle of Shiva Nekiyim. Rachel gets the garment back, right? Wears the garment, takes it off, finds that there's a stain on it. What does Rabbi Shimon Gamliel say? What does Rabbi Shimon Gamliel say? Who could she attribute the stain to? Let's analyze. Who? To her friends, right? Either to the Shomeres Yom Keneged Yom, right? Who's on her Tara day, who's on her Monday, or of the woman who's in the middle of the Shiva Nekiyim. And I want to say, what's Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's logic? What's his logic? These women are what, Rabbi say? These women are what? Already Tmeos, right? Think about it, right? The right woman number 1 who had a mission on Sunday and is observing her clean day on Monday, she's still technically Tmeah. Woman in her Shiva Nekiyim, still technically Tmeah. If there's a choice between who should we attribute the stain to, Rachel, what's Rachel's status? What's Rachel's status? We'll say Rachel, as far as we know, before she had the stain, is totally Tahora. So Rosh Hashanah says, listen, we have 2 women. One is Tmeah. Granted, the Tmeah woman is where? It's very interesting. The Tmeah woman is where? Right? She's in the middle of her Tara status, or in the middle of her Tara process. But despite being in the middle of her Tara process, she is still what? Technically, what's her status? She's Tmeah. So therefore, if it's a choice between attributing the stain to the woman who's already Tmeah, granted in her Tara process, or to Rachel, who as far as we know is totally Tahora, we're going to what? Attribute the stain to the Tmeah. Even though in this case, when you attribute the stain to the Tmeah woman, what are you doing, Abosai? What are you doing? You're compromising her. Right? You are compromising her. This is very important. So remember again, for the Shomeres Yom Keneged Yom, she's now going to have to observe Tuesday. For the woman in Shiva Nekiyim, Abosai, this could potentially mean what? I mean, not potentially, it means starting all over, depending on where she is in her Shiva Nekiyim, ultimately determines how severe that is. Incredible. Rabbi says, no, ain't no Tola. Rabbi says, sorry. In this case over here, we are not Tola. We are not Tola. Rabbi says, why not? Look at Rashi. Rabbi Omer ain't no Tola. Hoil umekalkila la, my chazis the mekalkeles lahach tfemehach. So Rabbi says, I'm all for attribution. Big fan of attribution. When what? When the woman to whom you are attributing the kesem to is not compromised through the attribution, like in the case of the Mishnah, where the woman is a Niddah, or the woman is a Gentile. There's no problem with attribution. In these cases over here, when you attribute this kesem to the woman who Shomeres Yom Keneged Yom, or to the woman who's in the middle of her Shiva Nekiyim, we'll say, what are you doing? What are you doing? You are sacrificing one woman for the benefit of the other. Rabbi says, sorry, we don't do that. We don't do that. Now, I'll say, interestingly enough, so what's the result of not doing that? Lefichach We'll say in the absence of the ability to attribute the kesem, we'll say what happens? Shtei mekukalos. So we'll say, so interestingly enough, it's not like, but Rebbe says, so we'll say, this is not a matter of like, Rebbe saying in the app, so I can't attribute the stain to one woman or the other, because attribution to one is by definition compromising her. So Rebbe saying in the ability to attribute says what? They're both suspect for the kesem, and therefore what? They're both mekukalos. So we'll say, so interestingly enough, Rebbe's outcome seems a bit counterintuitive to his logic, right? His logic is, how can we compromise one person at the expense of the other? Therefore, we'll say the result is they're both male. So we'll say, but that's not counterintuitive. That's just a there's usually three. Right? So, okay, right? Once I can't. So I'll say, I'll tell you something. This is the beauty of learning together over the course of a prolonged time, right? We even know our sneezing habits, right? This is mamish, like, I just want to point out. So I'll say, so Rebbe's logic is, once I can't attribute it, then by definition, they are all suspect. They are all suspects. So we'll say, so this, I just want to point out, this is a dramatic machlokes. So we have Rebbe saying, we're going to attribute it to the woman who is Tameah, even though I know that at the end of the day, by attributing it to her, ultimately you do compromise her. Rabbi Shmuel says, no, attribution is only permitted when attribution doesn't compromise the woman to whom the kesem is being attributed to, like the case of the Mishnah of the Niddah and the Nachris. But to compromise one woman at the expense of the other, that we won't do. Therefore, shtei mikol kalos. We'll say, watch this. V'shavin. But
the owner of the garment and the other.
Correct. Shtei, right. Remember again, there's not three women in this case. There's only two women in this case. Just the woman to whom it's being lent to. Those are one or two possibilities, right? Rachel is a fixture in this case. So when we say thank you, we say shtei mikol kalos, it's Rachel and whoever she lent it to. And again, there's just two possibilities as to who she lent it to. Either the woman who shomer som keneged yom, or the woman who is counting shiva nikiyim. Thank you. V'shavin. But both Rabbi Shmuel will agree that's what? Shetolin b'shomeras yom keneged yom berishon shela u'biyosheves al dam toar u'bipsula shedameha torim. But both Rabbi Shmuel will agree that's what? That if Rachel lent it to a woman, she will say, for example, shomeras yom keneged yom berishon shela is what case? Rachel lent it to a Jewish woman, and this woman had the mission on Sunday. And when did Rachel lend the garment to her? Sunday. And when did Rachel get it back from her? Sunday. And when does Rachel wear the garment? You see where this is going? Sunday. And when does she take it off? Sunday. When does she find the kesem? Sunday. So everybody will agree that if Rachel finds the garment on Sunday, that she could attribute it to him and she lent it to. Why? Because that attribution doesn't what? Doesn't compromise that woman at all. Similarly, again, if Rachel lent it to a woman who had given birth and is in the middle of her dam tohar days, right? Ultimately, again, attributing it to that woman, Rabbi say, doesn't what? Doesn't compromise her. Why? Because dam tohar doesn't compromise a woman. Dam besulim, we're going to get to that case in a little bit. Shabbos say, interestingly enough, what the Gemara is just saying over here is even Rebbe will agree that in a case where you could attribute it to the woman you lent it to without compromising that woman's status, Einachinami, of course, will attribute it in that case. Lefichach. So the Gemara says, by the way, Lefichach Rabbi Shimon Lamali. Shabbos say, why do I need the lashon of Lefichach Rabbi Shimon Gamliel? Mishum de Rebbe. That's just in order to make it symmetrical to the member of Rebbe. Lefichach de Rebbe Lamali. Why do I need the lashon of Lefichach by Rebbe? Because I'll tell you why. Ma'udetema hahid yishtachach kesem gaba tiskalkel idach lo tiskalkel. Because I would have thought just the most intuitive approach over here is if Rebbe says that you can't attribute blood to a woman if it's going to compromise her, then the most logical outcome would be what Rabbi say? Who should become Tameah? The woman who found the kesem. Right? Wouldn't that be like the most logical default? If you found it, it's yours. Right? Rachel, you took off the garment, you found it on the garment, it's your stain. V'idach lo tiskalkel, and the presence of the kesem shouldn't impact the woman to whom the garment was lent. Kamashlan, no. Kamashlan that Rebbe holds that halacha lamaisa, not only the woman who finds it, but the woman who borrowed it also is milkul kelas. So Amar Rav Chisda, we'll say along these same logic, we'll see these are fascinating cases. Tamei v'tar shahalchu b'shnei shvilin. We'll say this is so profound. A person who is tamei and a person who is tar, they went on two paths. Echad, it was not a metaphor. Echad tar ve'echad tamei. One path is tar, one path is tamei. And what Rabbi say? What's the only problem? We don't know who went on which path. So here's what I know. In this case, Rabbi say, Reuven and Shimon, I know that Reuven, now again, Reuven and Shimon, Reuven is Tameh, Shimon is Tar. That I know definitively. They each take a path, right? Two paths. I know that one path is Tameh, one path is Tar. Definitive, right? I know that I know definitively that one path is Tameh, one path is Tar. I just don't know which path Reuven took and which path Shimon took. So the Gemara says, "Banan lemachlokes Rabbi Shimon Gamliel." So Rabbi say this would apparently be the machlokes of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Why? What would happen? Over look at Rashi. Banan lemachlokes Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Damer Tolin Kesem b'Shemeres Yom Hachanami Tolin Shvil Tamei ba'Adam Tamei Vitar or the Rabbi Shteim Tin. So Rabbi say b'Pashtos we would see like this: Rabbi who says that you go ahead and you normally attribute Tumah to a person who is Tamei. So Rabbi would say, well, for halachic purposes, we assume that Reuven, who is Tamei, went down the path that is Tamei. Shimon, who is Tar, went down the path that is Tar. Because that's Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Lishitaso. He says, Rabbi say that essentially we assume that Tumah attracts Tumah, Tara attracts Tara in cases of Sigas. That's how we line it up. Rabbi, on the other hand, says no. Ultimately, again, if you don't know, you don't know, and therefore Shtei and Tameim. To which the Gemara says, Maskif la Ravada Barava. So Ravada says, I don't know that you could line up the two cases. Ad kan lo kama Rabbi Hassam ela de tarvaya ki adadi ninhu. See, Rabbi says like this. You see, the truth is, in the case ultimately again where I said they're both Tameos, that's because to a certain degree, both women are the same. So Rabbi say, listen to this. You see, Rabbi says something very interesting. In the case of the Kesem, Rabbi say, both women are the same. Why? Because technically speaking, both of them have a cheskes tara. Now remember again, what was the case? Right? Rachel lends out a garment. What's Rachel's status? Tar. Who did she lend it out to? Right? One of two women. Woman number one was who? Right? A woman who was Shomeres Yom Keneged Yom. She had her remission on Monday, and she's now observing her Tara day on Sunday. She's observing her Tara day when? On Monday. Woman, or possibility, who else did she lend it out to? Another woman? Possibility? Shiva Nekiyim. So Rabbi says like this. In fact, interesting for both saying, all of these women have a cheskes tara, right? They're all in their tar state. Now Rachel is objectively tar. The other two women are both are in the process of tara. So Rabbi will say that's ultimately again where I espouse my particular position, that you can't attribute to one of these women over the other because they are all Tahoros. However, Hacha manafka lanmina. Rabbi say, but in this case over here, remember, in this case, Reuven is Tameh, Shimon is Tahar. Rabbi will say, in this case where Reuven is definitively Tameh, I would agree that that Reuven is the one who went down the Tameh path. Why? Because it makes no difference. He's Tameh anyway. So since he's Tameh anyway, just attribute that to him. Rav Chisda will say, Sof ihi tvila bai. So let's listen to this. Rav Chisda says, I don't know, Rebbe. I don't know if it's so clear to say that a woman who shomer yom keneged yom, or a woman who is shiv in Nekiyim, is tahora. She's not tahora. She's not tahora until when? Until she goes to the mikvah. Now it's true that she's in the process of tara, but to say that she's tahora is not totally true. We'll say next case. Itmar Amar Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina Tamei v'tar. Let's listen to this. Person who's tamei and a person who's tar. Va'afilu tar v'talui, or even a person Rabbi say who is tar and another person who is suffik tamei. Shaholchu b'shnei shavilin, who walked down two paths. Echad tamei ve'echad tar. One path is tamei, one path is tar. So Rabbi say, what's the halacha? Tola tamei b'talui. Vitar l'divrei hakol. So we'll say, what's the halacha? We go ahead and we attribute the Tamei path ultimately again to the person who's even Safek Tamei, and the Tar path to the Tar, the Divrei HaKol. Why does the Divrei HaKol? Rashi says, Va'afilu Rabbi K'daminan dehasam hu dechi hadadininu, aval hacha de taloi Tamei, misafek v'tar tar gamar tolin tuma b'talei. So we'll say ultimately again, because it seems to be that the only time that Rebbe holds that halacha l'maisa we can't attribute anything to anyone is in a case where the two individuals involved in the situation are have an identical status. But when Rebbe essentially holds that a woman who is a Shomeres Yom Kineged Yom, observing her clean day, and a woman who is in the midst, ultimately again, of Shiva Nekiyim, is Tahora. Rebbe looks at her halachically like she is Tahora. Therefore, in that case, they are no different than Rachel, who is objectively Tahora. But even Rebbe will agree that in these kind of cases, Rabbosai, where one of the people, when they're walking down the paths, one of the people is Tameh, or at least Safik Tumah, the two people are not the same. And therefore, when the two people are not the same, Eina Chinami, you have the ability to go ahead and attribute the Tameh path to the Tameh individual. Quite incredible, Rabbosai. So therefore, what comes out is a very important principle, which is, when does ambiguity occur, Rabbosai? According to Rebbe's models, when does ambiguity occur? When the two people in question are the same. Then Rebbe will say, you can't assign a compromised status to one person over the other when status-wise they are the same. But halacha l'maaseh, status-wise they are not the same, then Eina Chinami, you could assign the compromised status to the individual who is compromised, and the tahar status to the individual who is tahar. Quite incredible. Next case. Ma'al litlos kesem bekesem. So listen to this. Listen to this interesting case. What happens? So Rachel, same case Rachel. Rachel goes ahead and lends out her garment to Leah. Now, interestingly enough, Leah is a Niddah. She's a Niddah. And the way she became a Niddah, how? Is through a kesem. Look at Rashi, kesem bekesem. Hish'ila chaluka lebaylas ha-kesem ba'achar kach lavashtai ma'o shetidla b'rishona liyos hitar. Supposed to listen to this. So Rachel is totally tahora. She lends her garment to Leah. Leah's a Niddah. How did Leah become a Niddah, by the way? Through a kesem, through a stain. Right? So Rachel lends the garment to Leah, gets it back from Leah, wears it, takes it off, and afterwards discovers a stain. So Rabbi says, now what's the shayla? Can Rachel attribute that stain to Leah, who was not only a Niddah, but what? A Niddah through Ksamim. Can she attribute it? To which the Gemara says, Aliba de Rabbi lo tibaylecha. So according to Rabbi, there's no shayla. Why? Hashta uma hasam de kachazia migufa amrit eno tola hacha de me'ama kaasi lo kol shekin. So look at Rashi. Rashi says over here, I'm sorry, not yet. So according to Rabbi, in that case over here, hasam de chazim gufa. So even in the case where a woman had an emission from her own body, yet Rabbi said she can't be tola. In this case over here, where it's possible that it came from outside, certainly she can't be tola. Ki al kiti bailacha. Where does the shayla come up? Aliba de Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. What's the Rabbi Shimon Gamliel? Remember again, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel was of the opinion that what? That halacha l'maisa. You can ultimately attribute, Rachel could attribute it to the woman she lent it out to. So the Gemara says, watch this. Hasamhu dekachazia migufa talya. Halcha de me'alma kaasi lo talya. So we'll say in general again, when it comes to ksamim, so ksamim in generally when you find them ultimately, again, sometimes they could be attributable to outside sources. So what would we say in this particular situation? So do we say ultimately again lo talya, therefore she cannot attribute it, ol dilma lo shna, or perhaps it makes no distinction. Amrle ein tolin. Ultimately, again, he said that halacha l'mais, in this case, Rabbi say Rachel cannot be tola the kesem on Leah who she lent it out to. Matam, Rabbi say, what's the reason for this? Lefi she'ein tolin. Rabbi say ultimately, again, what's the reason we say ein tolin? Because we say ein tolin. Rabbi says, look at Rashi. Lefi she'ein tolin. Deme alma asila tumas kesem kama v'lo becheskas roahi. Because Rabbi say ultimately, again, because the whole yisod of ksamim is ultimately one in which, I will say, remember, part of the kula of ksamim is the ability to be tolit on something else. Therefore, in this case over here, when Rachel gets back the garment, she cannot go ahead and be tola it on Leah. Good? From ksamim. Says the Gemara. Hishila chaluka lenachris, oli yosheves ala kesem, harei tola ba. So we'll say, here's the problem. We have another brayso. The brayso says if a woman lends out her garment to a Gentile or to another woman who is Yosheves, who has become Tameh as a result of the Kasem, so ultimately again, we'll call her Rachel, the owner of the garment, can attribute the stain to these other women. Gufa kasha, but that's an inherent contradiction. Reisha amrit ein tolin, seifa amrit tolin. According to the Reisha, he said you can't attribute it. Now the seifa says you can attribute it. So what's going on over here? Lo kasha. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Both say two different opinions. Remember again, Rabbi is the one who says you can attribute it. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is the one who said you can't attribute it. I'm sorry, just the opposite. Rabbi is one who says you cannot attribute it. Ultimately, Rabbi Shmuel Silber says you can attribute it. So we'll say, so therefore, the two different parts of the brisa reflect two different opinions. Another possibility is Havaha Rebbe. Both reflect the opinion of Rebbe. Ha Barishon Shalah, Ha B'Sheni Shalah. Ultimately, let's look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi B'Sheni Shalah, Eina Tola. So we'll say, so again, when can you be told it? Ultimately, again, on a Shomeres Yom Keneged Yom. If you're seeing it on the first day when she had the emission, then you could attribute it in the Shomeres Yom. If you're getting the Chalukah back on the second day, where technically speaking she already has a Chazkas Tara, then you will not be permitted to be tola it on her. So the Gemara says, Ikadami ha Rebbe ha Berisha shel b'sheni shela. Rav Ashi Amar ha v'ha Reb Shimon Gamliel. Or the other possibility is both reflective of Reb Shimon Gamliel. V'lo kash, it's not a contradiction. Amud Beis kan l'mafreya kan lahaba. What's the interesting distinction? One is talking about ultimately again retroactively, and one is talking about going forward. Look at Rashi kan l'mafreya. V'inyi tumas mafreya tolin. Ultimately again for the retroactive tuma will be tola. So we'll say, so for example, ultimately again the brisa that says, or the part of the brisa that says that halacha l'maisa, she could be tola. That's l'mafreya. That we will not be metame any taras based on this. The brisa that said ultimately again that she cannot be tola and therefore she's tameya. That's ultimately again lahaba. Miko makom kashya. This is what it means to say, if Rachel lent her garment to a nachris, ba'alas kesem, who herself experienced staining, ultimately again that Rachel could attribute the staining to the nachris. But it says the lashon is olio sheves ala kesem, which sounds like a separate case. This is what it means to say, O liosheves al dam toar, or Rabbi say for that matter, if Rachel lent her garment, ultimately again to a woman who is yosheves al dam toar, or ba'alas kesem toleba, then ultimately again the ba'alas kesem, meaning the woman who finds the kesem on the garment, ultimately again could be tola in her. So Rabbi say, so interestingly enough, what this comes down to is a fundamental machlokes ultimately between Rebbe and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Namely, halacha l'maisa. What do I do in the case? So in other words, we'll say, let's take a step back. All of this comes to a fundamental yesodistic machlokes in attribution. When can you attribute the kesem to someone else? And Rabbi say the bottom line, halacha l'maisa, is that ultimately, again, you could only go ahead and attribute a stain when halacha l'maisa it does not compromise the woman to whom you are attributing it to. So in any case where Rachel goes ahead and lends out the garment, gets the garment back, finds a stain on it, can she attribute it to the woman to whom she lent it? Yes, as long as that does not compromise the woman to whom it is being lent. Shabbos says, so for example, what cases fall into that category? Rachel lends out her garment to Leah, and Leah is a Niddah, right? In the middle of her 7 days of Nidos, Rachel gets the garment back. Where's it? Finds the stain. Rabbi say, what's the halacha? What's Rachel's status? You be the posek. What's Rachel's status? Tahora. Why? She could attribute the stain to who? To Leah, because she's a Nida. And why can she attribute the stain to Leah? Because that attribution doesn't compromise Leah. Why doesn't it compromise Leah? Because she is already a Niddah. Now, remember again, this isn't biblical Niddah, where she's just observing 7 days. There's no Shiv and a Kiyim. Right? The say similarly, Rachel lends out her garment to a Nochris, to a Gentile woman, right? Who is, let's say, because remember, we accept Rabbi Rav's, who is a Roa, right? A woman who is in the state of active menstruation. It doesn't mean, by the way, that she's actively menstruating now. It means that we know that she's a woman who menstruates, right? So again, Rachel lends the garment to her, gets the garment, there's a kesem on the garment. What's the halacha, Rabbi Osai? Rachel could attribute it to the nachris. Why? Because she's not compromising her. Rabbi Osai, on the flip side, Rachel lends out her garment to Leah. Leah had an emission on Sunday, right? Rachel lends her the garment on Monday, where it's her tahar day, right? She's observing a clean day. Rachel gets the garment back. Rachel finds a stain. Could Rachel attribute that stain to Leah? No, why not? Why not? Because we'll say if she attributes that stain to Leah, then what happens, Rabbi Say? Then ultimately, again, that causes Leah to restart her Naki day. Same thing with Shiva Nikiyim. Then Rabbi Say, now the result of that is that Halacha L'maisa, they'll both be Tmeos. So I will say, but bottom line is, Halacha L'maisa, the rules of Taliyah say that Rachel could attribute the stain that she finds on a garment to the woman to whom she lent the garment out, as long as what? That attribution does not halachically compromise the woman to whom the stain is being attributed to. Good. So we'll say, the Gemara goes weiter. Shalosh Shur Rabbi Nechemiah. So we'll remember again, Rabbi Nechemiah said that halacha l'maisa, whenever a woman finds a kasem on an item that is not mekabel tumah, ultimately what? The kasem is not tameh. So says the Gemara, Amrav Masna, my time, Rabbi Nechemiah. What's Rabbi Nechemiah's logic? He quotes over here the pasuk from Yeshaya. The pasuk says, "V'nikasa la'aretz teishev." Kevan sheyashva la'aretz niksa. Once ultimately again she sits on the ground. Ultimately again she is nikia, which also we darshan to mean just as the earth is not mekabel tumah, so too again if she sees blood on any item that is not mekabel tumah, she is totally tahora. Amar Rav Huna. Amar Rabbi Chanina, Mitara Haya Rabbi Nechemiah afilu ba'achori klicheres. Rabbi Nechemiah even was mitarbo say that if there was blood on the back of a klicheres, she is tahora, or the klicheres is tahora. Pshita, or she is tahora. The klicheres, both are tahora. Savi, so remember again, how is the klicheres mekabel tumah? Only mitocho, only on the inside, right? A klicheres cannot be mekabel tumah on the outside. So of course, if there's dam niddah, if there's dam on the outside of the klicheres, according to Rabbi Nechemiah, if she sees blood on something that is not mekabel tumah, ultimately again she's tahora. What I have thought, lig zor gabo atu tocho. I might have thought that maybe we should be concerned that if you're metar blood that is on the outside of the kli, you may come to what? Be metar blood on the inside of the kli. Kamash malon, no. Amar Abaye. Metar Hayir Rabbi Nechemiah. We'll see just some more examples of this. Metar Rabbi Nechemiah b'matlonio sheman shalosh al shalosh. So we'll see similar Rabbi Nechemiah said that if a woman saw blood on a piece of cloth that is less than 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths, that ultimately again she's not tamei. I will say why not? Because such a cloth that is so small doesn't have the status of a beged. Why? Lo chazyan, lo la'aniyim, lo la'ashin. Both say it's not usable for anyone. So such a cloth so small doesn't have the status of a beged. If it doesn't have the status of a beged, then halacha l'maisa it's not mekabel tumah. If it's not mekabel tumah, the Rabbi Nechemiah has taught us that what? She cannot become a niddah through any type of blood seen on that garment. Darish Rabbi Chia bar Rav Masna mishmei derav halacha kreb Nechemiah. The halacha will say that ultimately a woman cannot become a niddah if she sees dam on anything that is not mekabel tumah. Amar li Rav Nachman, Abba Tani Maisa. My father said over a story, told over a story. What happened? So Maisa balifnei chachamim v'timum. I should say differently. Amar li Rav Nachman, Abba Tani. My father taught the following thing. Maisa balifnei chachamim. There was an episode that came before the chachamim, and what? V'timum. And they were metameith. And I will say what this sounds like. What was the story over here? The story was that a woman came with dam niddah that she saw on an item that was not mekabel tumah, and the rabbis paskined that she was a niddah, which sounds like what Rabbi say that the halacha does not follow Rabbi Nechemiah. Va'at amrit halacha Rabbi Nechemiah, right? And how can you say? So remember again, this Rav Nachman saying, my father told me a story that when this case came up in front of the Chacham, they paskin that she's tmeya. And yes, you're saying that halacha follows Rabbi Nechemiah. So you by the way, Mahi, well, what was the case you're talking about over here? Here we go. The Sanya. It's a very interesting case. 2 women were working a hand mill together. So we'll say, you know how a hand mill works, right? Of course, right? You push it. That's pretty much it, right? That's the whole thing, right? So ultimately, again, right? It's a mill. It's a mill that has a bar that comes out of it, and you push the mill. We'll say, as opposed to what? As opposed to a water mill. This is very important details. As opposed to a water mill, right? A water mill is powered by excellent, right? So by water, so we'll say, so this is a hand mill, right? So watch this. So 2 women were pushing the hand mill. So we'll say, now what happened over here? Now, blood was found by where the inner one stood. So we'll say, so obviously the way it works is, so you have 2 women standing, they're both pushing the bar. We'll call it one stands inside being closer to the mill itself. one stands outside. There was blood found underneath where the inner woman was. Right, the inner woman was. So the Gemara said, listen to this. Tachas hapenimis. What's the halacha? Let me see it differently. So what blood was found by where the inner woman was. What's the halacha? Shtei and tameos. We'll say in that case, both women will be tameos. Now, why are both women tameos? Like Rashi, shtei and tameos. Ritzonos dochekes atzma liskari v'alarechayim v'alveres v'nichnes la ma'amad hapenimis. Hilchun shtei and avru sham v'lo yadim hanarvos. Listen to this. So the way it works is, over the course of the pushing of the mill, you go round and round. So over time, ultimately, again, the one who starts out on the outer position often just moves her way in to the point that she ends up very close to the inner one. Therefore, if you find blood where the inner one was standing, it's just as probable that blood came from who? From the outer one as well. Therefore, both are tmeos. On the flip side, Tachas hachitzona, if you find blood from by where the outer woman was standing, then what? Hachitzona tamea v'apnimis tahora. Right? Then ultimately only the outer woman is tamea, the inner woman is tahora. We'll say, why is that? Why is that? Because apparently just the way it worked is the inner one always stayed on the inside. Right? She always stayed on the inside. So I'll say, I think it also makes sense, like if you think about it, when you're going round and round, so it makes sense that as you keep going round and round, you gravitate a bit more towards the center. Right? Good. Force pulls it. Good. It's true. I'm not asking you, right? I'm telling you, right? So I'll say, so again, right? So the point over here is, again, I will say, this is just the mitzias, right? The outer woman would just gravitate towards the inside. The inner woman would not gravitate out. So therefore, again, if you find blood by the inside, it's possible that it came from both of them. Therefore, halacha lemaisa, both are tmeos. If you find dam by the outside woman, only the outside woman is tamei, or by where the outside woman would have been, the inside one is not, because she does not venture out there. What happens, bein sayim? What happens if it's found somewhere in the middle of the two women, or somewhere in the middle? Then what's the halacha? Shtei and tmeos. Ultimately, again, both are tmeos. So both say. So interestingly enough, now remember again, what's interesting over here is where are you finding blood? Where are you finding blood over here? So bepashtos, it's on the ground. And yet, what do you see over here? They're talking about tameos, which indicates to us what? That not everybody passing like Rabbi Nechemiah. You're finding blood on something that is not mekabel tuma, right? And therefore, again, they're still declaring it tameh. So we'll say this is just the point. Of Nachman said, you're saying halacha follows Rabbi Nechemiah. My father taught about stories where ultimately, again, there was blood on something that wasn't mekabel tuma, and they're still declaring it ultimately tameh. Another case, hayamaisa v'nim sadam al svasa shalam bati. Well, says Allah shel zayis. There was once a case where they found blood on the ledge of the bathtub. Right? This is by a communal bathhouse. Right? They found blood by the edge of the bathtub, and also on an olive branch. So we'll say, so this must have been a case. Case number one is obviously where the woman is going into the bathhouse to bathe. Case number two, she's doing something with olives, and while she was doing that, they found blood on the olive branch. So we'll say, what's the halacha? At a time, ultimately, again, where they were firing up the ovens. So we'll say, so the olive branch was being used ultimately for what? For fuel, for the fire. Now, an olive branch is not mekabel tuma. So the Gemara says, and we'll say the episode came before the chachamim, and what? Apparently they knew there was a particular woman in the area of this olive branch, and they declared her tameh. Now, we'll see, what do you see from here? That a woman can become tameh through blood that is on something that is not mekabel tuma. To which the Gemara says, you're right. Tanahi, it's machlokes tanoim. This sign, Rabbi Yaakov metame, Rabbi Nechemiah metayer. Rabbi say, Enachinam, you're right. This is a machlokes tanoim. Rabbi Yaakov says that even dam that is an item that is not mekabel tuma is still what Rabbi say. She can become a niddah through it. And Rabbi Nechemiah says, no, she can't, based on the passage that he quoted before. V'horu chachamim ki Rabbi Nechemiah. And Rabbi say, so it's a machlokes tanoim, but the chachamim paskind like Rabbi Nechemiah, i.e., that a woman cannot become a niddah through blood that appears on an item that is not mekabel tuma. And Rabbi say that is indeed how we paskin halacha lemaisa. And Rabbi say this goes all the way back to the beginning of this parak. The beginning of the last parak, right? Of a woman who sits on the ground and finds blood on the ground. She is not mekabel tuma. She does not become a niddah, because we'll say we paskin that any show of blood that comes up on something that is not mekabel tuma does not make her a niddah. Definitive halacha. Mishnah. We'll say incredible. Shalosh noshim sheyishenos b'mita achos. 3 women sleeping in the same bed. And what happened? V'nim sadam tachas achas mehen, and they find blood by one of the women. So we'll say, what's the halacha? Kulan tameos. Everyone is tamei. Everyone is tamei. And I will say, now ultimately again, why is everyone tamei? Because I will say, remember again, first of all, in the course of a bed, people move around, right? So therefore again, we'll see. But ka'achas mehen. So if one of the women did a bedika, v'nim says tmea, and I will say, it turns out that there's blood on her bedika cloth, then what? He tmea ushten Torah. So I will say, so ultimately again, in that case, where one of the women does a bedika, and she finds blood, then what? We could attribute the blood in the bed to her. So we'll say, so remember again, if no one's actively bleeding now, all of them are tmeos. One of them does a bedika, she's bleeding, we could attribute the stain to her. Vitolos zu bazu. We'll see what this means in the Gemara. Ultimately, again, they could attribute the blood one to the other. We'll see what that means. Ve'im lo hayir ru'uyin liros. And I will say, if the women in question were not ru'uya liros. So we'll say, so what does that mean? Or if they were not at the stage where they were seeing dam. So we'll say, so for example, we'll see, let's say they were all pregnant, or they were all nursing, in situations where they are misulekes damim. We generally assume a pregnant woman does not become a niddah, right? A nursing woman does not become a niddah. So in that case, where they were all pregnant, all nursing, all ru'us, like Rashi, him lo haya ru'uyos, Rashi says. Well, actually, yeah. Look at Rashi just before V'tolos zubazu. Rashi's b'gibar mafarishla shimhaisa achas mu'uberes tola adam b'she'ina mu'uberes hitara. So we'll say. So let me just clarify these cases. Case number one in the Mishnah was 3 women in the bed. You find blood underneath one of them. All of them are tmeos. Case 1. Case 2. One of them does a bedika, finds blood. We assume that the blood came from her. The other 2 are tahoros. Case number 3, tolos zubazu, that ultimately, again, let's say 2 of the women are pregnant, one is not. It sounds like what the Mishnah is saying over here is that the pregnant ones, who are considered misulekes tam, who don't normally bleed, attribute the bleeding to who? To the non-pregnant one. Case number 4, Rabbi say if all of the women, let's say all 3 were pregnant, right? All 3 were nursing. All 3 were nursing. So ultimately, again, the Mishnah says, Rowan Osan ki Elohein ru'uyos. We look at them as if they are indeed fit to bleed. We'll see what that means in the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. We'll say just a few more minutes. So V'hu shebat ka'atzma kishir veses. So this is very interesting. Now, when the Gemara says over here, when the Mishnah said that Allah Chalamayis, 3 women in the bed, they find blood. So what did the Mishnah say? First case was they're all tmeos. Second case was if one of them does a bedika, and ultimately what? One of them does a bedika and finds blood on her bedika cloth. So what's the halacha? She's tamea, the rest are tahoros. The Gemara now is qualifying that case and says, when is that true? V'hu shebad ka'atzma kashir veses. That is true, Abosai, when what? When the woman who did the bedika what we call kashir veses. Now, also we saw this before. Shir veses means that what? Immediately. She does the bedika immediately after finding the stain. So there's an immediacy there. To which the Gemara says, this reflects the view of Rabbi Pada household. The Amar kol shebala bechatos taros se'atmeo. So we'll say, any case, this is as follows. This is talking about a case ultimately again, where let's say she has relations and finds blood. So any case where she would find the blood immediately, therefore her husband would be chayiv achatos, her taros are tmeos, which means Rabbi say ultimately again she is assumed to be in a state of niddah. Baila ba'asham taloi, any case where ultimately again her husband would be subject to an asham taloi, which Rabbi means that she finds the blood not immediately. Remember we had all of these cases, esyom la'achar esyom, finding the blood immediately, doing a bedika in bed after relations, the amount of time it takes to get off the bed, all of those cases we saw before. Baila ba'asham taloi, any case where she did the bedika in a delayed way, that her husband only be liable to an asham taloi, taroset tuliyos. So to any taros that she touched would also be safek tamei. Baila potter, but I will say if she did the bedika much later on after the act of relations, to the point that even if she saw blood, there would be no carbonic liability for her husband. Taros tahoros. Her taros ultimately again would be fine as well. Raboshia Amar. So I will say, so what it's saying over here is this reflects that view that in order to go ahead and attribute the dam. In the case of 3 women in the bed, and one of them does a bedika, finds blood. The Mishnah says you could attribute that blood to her. That's only if what? She's doing a bedika immediately. immediately. Rabbi Oshia Amar, Afilu Baila Bechatas Taroset Tuluyos. And Rabbi Oshia says, no, even in the case of Osai, where the husband ultimately again is subject to a chatos, because there's a concern, there's a suffix that he was Bo'al Niddah, ultimately again her taros are still suffix. So Bishlama, I understand in that case over here, Bishlama Hasam, Eimer Shamish Akvela Dam. So Rabbi saying, in the case of relations, even if she doesn't find the blood immediately, there's a reason for that, which is we assume that as a result of the act of relations, so ultimately again, the man's aver kind of kept the blood inside. Therefore, it only comes out in a little bit of a delay. Aval hacha im isa dahavi dam manakve. But ultimately, again, over here in a case like this, if she was actively bleeding, then what would have prevented the blood from coming out any earlier? To which the Gemara says, Mashal. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yirmiyah Mashal Raboshia. Raboshia Mashal is as follows. Mashal Raboshia Lema Davadome Liyeled v'zakin shayim halchim b'derech. This can be compared to an old man and a young child who are walking on the pathway. Kolzman shahayu b'derech. Anytime they were traveling, right on the journey, yeled shor lavo. So we'll say while they're traveling, or essentially what it means is while they're traveling outside of the city, where the child does not know the way, he stays with the old man. Nichnesu le'ir. Once they get into the city and the child knows his way, then what? Yeled memaher lavo. Ultimately, again, the child travels off on his own way. So we'll say what that means is as follows: that ultimately, again, so the mashal over here is the old man is the male aver, right? When the male aver is there, it keeps the child, which will reference to dam niddah, from coming out. But ultimately, again, once the male aver is no longer there, then the child goes its own way. How the Gemara says, another example is like a man who puts his finger in his eye. So apparently, when the finger is in the eye, you don't tear as much. But notala etzba, the moment you take the finger out, then what? Dima mimaheres lavo. Ultimately, again, the tears come flowing. So we'll say, so the idea over here being, just understand the idea, is that halacha l'maisa, when a woman sees dam after bia, there is a little bit ultimately again of a window. Meaning there's a window for her to do the bedika and still create a halachic reality of that she was a niddah during relations. The blood, she didn't see the blood till later. The assumption is because even if there was blood there, the act of relations kept it inside. What the Gemara is just trying to highlight over here in this case is that in order to go ahead and in this case of the three women in the bed, one of the women does a bedika. And ultimately finds blood, that bedika would have to be done immediately. Why? Because if she found blood immediately, then einachinami, she's the niddah. But if it was some level of delay, then Abba say again, remember, there's no excuse for that delay. Because there's no relations happening over here, there's no excuse for that delay. Therefore, the only way for her to save the other two women would be if she were to do a bedika immediately after discovering the blood in the bed. If she were to then go ahead and find blood from herself as well, she would be halachically, she would be the source of the dam, and the other two women would be fine. All right, we'll stop over here. We're going to pick up with this tomorrow.